A young woman lies on the polished floor of a busy shopping mall, her body seized by a sudden convulsion that contorts her limbs at unnatural angles. Her shopping bags are scattered around her, contents spilling out across the gleaming tiles as concerned shoppers begin to notice and gather. Fear and confusion register on the faces of onlookers who stand frozen, unsure how to respond to the medical emergency unfolding before them. The crowd has formed a protective circle around the woman, whose convulsion continues to rack her body with involuntary movements. A middle-aged man in a blue sweater kneels beside her, having identified himself as a nurse, carefully turning her onto her side while instructing someone to call for an ambulance. His hands move with practiced precision as he checks her airway and ensures she doesn't strike her head against the hard floor. The mall's overhead lights create harsh shadows that emphasize the tension in every face watching the scene. Paramedics in crisp uniforms push through the ring of spectators, their medical equipment casting long shadows across the floor as they approach the woman whose convulsion has subsided into smaller, intermittent tremors. The nurse steps back, visibly relieved as he gestures toward the patient, and rapidly explains what he's observed since the convulsion began. A store employee stands nearby, holding the woman's purse, having found an emergency contact card with a family member's number. The clinical efficiency of the first responders contrasts sharply with the lingering shock on the faces of bystanders. The lead paramedic stabilizes the woman's head while her partner administers medication through an IV line to prevent another convulsion from occurring. Their movements are swift and coordinated as they communicate in terse professional phrases, preparing to transfer her to a stretcher. The woman's eyes are now partially open, confusion evident in her gaze as she gradually regains awareness of her surroundings. Store security has established a perimeter with retractable barriers, creating a channel through which the medical team can transport the patient once she's ready to be moved. Sunlight streams through the mall's glass entrance doors as the paramedics wheel the stretcher toward the waiting ambulance, the woman now conscious and covered with a light blanket after her convulsion episode. A young man rushes toward them, panic giving way to relief on his face as he recognizes his sister and is permitted by the paramedics to briefly hold her hand. Behind them, the nurse who provided the initial assistance watches with professional satisfaction, his blue sweater now wrinkled from his time spent kneeling on the floor. Mall operations have resumed their normal rhythm, with only a small wet area where the floor was cleaned and a few curious glances marking the spot where the medical emergency had occurred.